is the interesting thing, and he told me that this is an interesting thing, that he comes from a well-to-do Brahmin family. The reason I say it, and he said it, that it is interesting because I'm a Brahmin also, but being a Brahmin, we certainly enjoy certain privileges, no matter what you say. Everywhere we go, we do enjoy those privileges. I have enjoyed those. And his mother and his father, they were both active in politics. And he completed his MA and MPhil from JNU, and later on he went to London School of Economics. London School of Economics, I personally think, is a better university or better school than WhatsApp University. That's just my personal opinion, though. And I asked Prabhakar, and he said, I can really show you the degree if you want to see it, that he did complete his PhD from London School of Economics. Now, many WhatsApp University graduates may not know this university, but that is a fact. And it's renowned in world, except the Indian WhatsApp world. Except that world, everywhere people know about JNU, people know about London School of Economics. And he is an economist. He is a political and social commentator, and he has done live TV in Andhra Pradesh, and he has been involved in a lot of political commentary. And recently, he has been very active. He has written a great book, which is really a collection of his essays. The book is called "The Crooked Timber of New India: Essays on a Republic in Crisis." So he's talking about New India, and he also says essays on a republic which is in crisis. So that is a very interesting take. And without further ado, I will hand it over to Prabhakarji. And today's topic is decoding New India. So we are very excited. And first of all, thank you, Prabhakar, for joining this event and really agreeing it. This event came into being in just a couple of weeks. So appreciate your willingness to participate in such events. So with that, it's all over to Prabhakar. And one more thing I forgot. The structure of this event is going to be Prabhakar will talk about for about 45 minutes, and he will decode the new India, where India is going to be Vishwaguru now, or probably has already become Vishwaguru. I don't know. But it's going, the new India, he will be decoding that for 45 minutes, and then we will take Q&A. If you have questions, you can post it in the Q&A section of this Zoom meeting. So, Prabhakar, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Anirudh. Is my audio all right?
Yeah, pretty good.
I'm really honored to be here, Anirudh. Thank you for inviting me. And after you told us about Sri Deshmukh, I feel it's indeed a very inspiring personality. And no wonder people like you are inspired, and you want to continue his memory, his legacy, by continuing his activism, what he taught. Um, when you said about your Facebook activism and what Deshmukh ji told you, that that is not enough, you have to get into the field. That really rings a bell with me, because we are facing a lot of problems in India, and a lot of people disagree with what's happening. They're unhappy with what's happening. And then one day,
Prabhakar, oh, can I interrupt you for a minute?
Yeah.
Just 1 minute. Yeah, because I noticed Mr. Sam Pitroda has joined us.
Oh.
So if you don't mind, Sam, can you say hi, and can you speak for couple of sentences on this event and your thoughts? I'm sorry to interrupt, Prabhakar, but I think
No
with Sam
problem.
here,
It's always a
I
pleasure.
think, yeah. Sam, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Well, thank you, Sam, for joining this event. I know I contacted you, and we really appreciate your presence here.
Thank you. First of all, greetings from Chicago. I'm here mainly to listen to a friend of mine whom I respect and admire. I've read his book. I know him personally, but more so about Sunil. Sunil was a personal friend for several decades. I visited him with my wife. We stayed with him for a couple of days. He was a great friend, host, activist, philanthropist, and a very decent human being. He and I used to talk a great deal about India and the future of India. Though he spent a lot of time in the US, his heart was still in many ways in India. So I'm delighted to be with you all to celebrate his life, his work, and his ideas. And you couldn't have found a better person than Rakala Prabhakar to really start this conversation. Your challenge is going to be, how do you find a next speaker of the same quality? So wish you all the best. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I'm here to just be there to remember my friend and to listen to another friend and to be with you all. Manoj called me, reminded me. So thanks, Manoj. I was ready to watch Farid Zakaria show, which I watch normally on Sunday morning if I get chance. But like many of us, we are all very concerned about what is going on in India. The polarization is so bad that you cannot have a normal conversation with most of the people. It is very difficult, even in family and friends, to have logical, rational, respectful, dignified conversation. I wrote recently a book on the idea of democracy because I'm very concerned about democracy, not just in India, but also in the US. As you know, this year there will be elections in 64 countries. 2024 is a unique year, and most of these countries are having serious challenges related to elections, democracy, authoritarian regime, polarized politics, hate, misinformation, lies. And I think we are going through a very difficult time globally. So it's good to listen to people like Prabhakar. He has written a great book, has good insight into what is going on. And I hope we all enjoy listening to him. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. And just for your information, Rajendra is here and Pratibha Deshmukh is also here. Just FYI.
Hi, Pratibha. How are you?
Probably
She was a great host. We stayed with her.
Okay. Probably she's on mute. Thank you. Okay, Prabhakar ji, it's all yours. Sorry to
No
interrupt.
problem. It's always a pleasure to see and listen to Dr. Pitroda. In fact, what he did not mention is that, he wrote a small commendation for my book. It appears on the back cover of my book. That means a lot to me. Thank you very much, Dr. Pitroda, for taking off your time and being here. When I was talking about, the guidance Deshmukhji gave you, and I was referring to that, especially about activism, Anuruddha. It really rang a bell to me because when I was speaking to somebody who was very concerned about what is happening in India, And then he said, I've mentioned one of the issues, and he said, I've just blasted the government on this particular thing. I said, did you? Where did you blast the government on? He said, don't you see my Facebook posts? So most of the activism now is confined to posting a Facebook or a tweet or some such a thing. But the actual protest on the ground, feet on the ground kind of a protest, is largely missing. That is the reason why the government and the ruling party, they go on unpunished election after election. They are able to overcome the challenge. But I think that things are changing. Let's see what is in store for us. As Dr. Pitroda said, that 2024 is going to be a testing time for not only India but many democracies in the world. I like the way Aniruddha, you structured the thing. I would say something for about 45 minutes, and then equal amount of time is allotted to Q&A. I like this format because I am somebody who doesn't believe in Man Ki Baat. I would like to have a dialogue. I would like to be challenged. I would like to be scrutinized. My propositions, my formulations, whatever my thoughts. I think they should be critically examined. They should be challenged. There should be discussion. There should be dissent. There could be disagreement. Probably, I would be much more happy if there's some people who would disagree with me and put forward an alternative proposition, which is badly missing in India today. The government and the ruling party, especially the leaders of the government, they just do not like anybody challenging them. Let me begin by looking broadly. I think I'll spend a lion's share of the time that you've allotted to me on the economy. Then I will briefly put forward my thoughts on the polity and the federal structure, and the general social fabric and other things. Last month, that was in February, the government had released a white paper on the economy. Most of you must have seen. I had seen that with a huge amount of interest. And then I was very disappointed because, I did not find any mention of the issues that really concern me and which I think really concern a huge percentage of India's population. Because people like you who are, I think today's audience mostly, I think, are from the United States. You hear great things about Indian economy, that it is the fastest growing economy in the world, that it is now the 5th largest economy. It has already overtaken the United Kingdom and occupied the 5th place. India is respected a lot. People look at India, people listen to India. Of course, the Indian government says that, we have already become Vishwaguru and all that. I must say, Aniruddha, that I want all these things to happen. I want India to be the powerhouse of the world economy. I want India to grow at the fastest rate possible. I want India to become a developed country. Not only just 5th largest economy, maybe even first, why not? And I want India to be recognized as a Vishwaguru in terms of research and development, and innovations, inventions, these things. And I want, whenever Indians go abroad or Indian leaders go abroad, I want the entire world to sit up and take note of what they say, what they do, and copy what India is doing. This is what I want. But I must say, at the moment, I'm quite disappointed. And I want to begin by looking at what the white paper said. White paper, which was released by the government in February, did not talk about the unemployment situation. It did not talk about price rise, which means it did not talk about inflation. It did not talk about the debt. It did not talk about the investment. It did not talk about, what kind of investment is coming from abroad, what kind of a domestic investment is being, mobilized. It also did not talk about the corporate responsibility, social responsibility, political responsibility. Those items are completely missing. And therefore, I want to use this time that I have to highlight what the Government of India did not speak in its white paper. And I want to also tell you, to start with, what my talk is not going to be about. It is not going to be about UPA versus NDA. It is not about Jawaharlal Nehru versus who. It is about the new India, which some people say was inaugurated in 2014. And there are some people who have gone to the extent of saying that India gained independence in 2014. The white paper also did not mention the rural distress. The white paper also did not mention the tepid demand in the rural areas. The white paper also did not mention the rising demand for Manrega. The white paper also did not mention about the state of affairs in rural India and especially the farmers. Let me begin by saying that, somebody asked me immediately after the government had released the white paper, and they asked me for my reaction to the white paper. I said, look, I do not have to wait for the government to give me a white paper on Indian economy, because I get my white paper on the Indian economy once a month and also once a week. Because once a week, I go myself and buy vegetables. And once a month, I go myself and to the provision store and buy my rations, my provisions. So that gives me an idea of what is happening in the economy. The surest way, Aniruddha, to get an idea of what is happening in the Indian economy, or any economy for that matter, is to go yourself and buy your stuff. And I also get once in 2-3 days another small white paper when I go to the gas station and fill my petrol. These are the 3 times in a month I get my white paper. I'll give you a small example. I've noted down. I keep noting down because I want to see the tracking. Because you see, it'll be very misleading if you look at the headline inflation. They might say, it's just under 6%. It's come down to 5.8% or 4.2%. To me, as a person living in a society, these headline figures do not make any sense to me. What makes sense to me is, what do I pay when I go? How much did I pay, say, a couple of months ago? I'm not talking about 2014 or under Jawaharlal Nehru. I'm talking about what did I pay, say, about 2 or 3 months ago. I've for today's talk, what I did is I've noted down the prices that I paid in November 2023 and what I paid at the beginning of this month, March. We are on the last day. I'll be going to the market again in the 3-4 days. Dal, Aniruddha, in November 23, I paid 110 rupees. This month beginning, I paid 170 rupees. Jaggery, I paid 42 rupees. And the beginning of this month, I paid 50 rupees. Sugar in November, I paid 34 rupees. And beginning of this month, 42 rupees. When I said this to a friend of mine, he said, how did you get it for 42 rupees? I paid 45 rupees. So there are some variations. And, the perishable, the vegetable kind of a thing. We use a lot of ginger. We use, of course, in Andhra Pradesh, we use a lot of mirchi, chili also. Ginger, I paid 95 rupees in 23. This month beginning, I paid 120 rupees. Green chilies, I paid 65 rupees in November. This month beginning, I paid 82 rupees. So this is something that is a very, very loud and clear white paper for me. If you want to look at the data will tell you that, the headline inflation is about 4.8% or 5%. Sometime back, I saw a newspaper headline, Aniruddha, saying that, the rate of inflation is lowest in the last 2 quarters. That is the headline. And I'm not somebody who would just read the headline and leave it. I read the what was the text underneath the headline. It said inflation fell from 7.2% to 6.9%. Does it really make any difference to a common consumer like you and me? From 7.2% to 6.9%. That is, it seems, is the lowest in the last 2 quarters or 3 quarters. That is how misleading the figures and the kind of massaging it is newspapers do, which are, now every newspaper, they just cannot print anything which is not, which doesn't humor the government. But then if you look at the, the detailed figures for the inflation, vegetable inflation, Aniruddha, is about 27%. It's more than 27%. Pulses inflation is at 19.5%. Cereals inflation is at 7.8%. Sugar inflation is at 7.5%. The impact of all this, and coupled with that, is the fuel inflation. Now, in Hyderabad, I pay 107 rupees for a liter of petrol. And the other day, just 2 days before, I was in Vijayawada. They said it was 112 rupees a liter because, transportation, longer distances and all that. So this is the kind of scenario we have. And, on the coming 5th, April 5th, the Reserve Bank of India is going to have a monetary policy committee's meeting. People are expecting whether they will reduce or adjust the interest rates, repo rate, and reverse repo rate, and things like that. We don't know what they're going to do, but they have not been altering the rates for a long time because they are not satisfied with the progress that the government is making in controlling or taming the inflation. Especially 5 states have, the tolerable level, the tolerable limit, what the Reserve Bank of India calls, of inflation is 6%, which itself is very high. The highest tolerable limit for inflation, according to the Reserve Bank, is 6%. About 5 states in India have already breached. And this is the headline inflation. I'm not talking about the food inflation, medical inflation, education inflation, cereals inflation, sugar inflation, eggs inflation. I'm not talking about those things, but headline itself. For instance, Gujarat's inflation is 6.21%, Karnataka is 6.1%, Haryana is 6.24%, Telangana is 6.34%, Odisha is 7.55%. So many states are breaching already this kind of the highest tolerable limit for inflation, the tolerable thing. This is one. And then what is happening because of this is that you have to juxtapose what is happening in the other sector. And the other thing that the white paper unfortunately doesn't talk about is the unemployment situation. I will give you two or three real life situations, Aniruddha, and then give you the data. Number one, in 2022 beginning, I think in January, February, we had a huge commotion in UP and Bihar. That is because the railways have announced some non-technical jobs. The number of jobs that the railways have announced, vacancies, was 35,000. For 35,000 jobs, there were, listen to the figure carefully, for 35,000 jobs, the applicants were 1 crore 25 lakhs. For 35,000 non-technical jobs, the number of applicants were 1 crore 25 lakhs. You can imagine. And there's this problem in Gaza Strip. And Israeli government has sacked all the Palestinians who are working for their establishments. And they wanted to recruit people from different countries. And one of the candidates for recruitment is India. And, they've opened recruitment centers in UP and Haryana initially, and they've extended that to Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan also after the state government elections. And, hordes and hordes of youngsters are queuing up outside these recruitment centers. And journalists have gone and asked these youngsters who were lining up there, are you aware that there is a disturbance in that area? There's a war situation in that area. Are you aware that you're risking your lives when you go there to work? And you know what the youngsters have said? It's all reported in the newspapers. The youngsters have said, look, instead of dying here without a job, let us go there, work as long as it is possible, as long as we are alive, and send some money back home, and we live there. This is what they said. This is the second thing. The third thing I want to draw your attention to, Aniruddha, is this. Very recently, just a few days before, I learned this. Most people in India still do not know this. I came to know this because it is reported in a very, very, insignificant way in the newspapers here in Andhra Pradesh, because somebody belonging to Hyderabad, his dead body came from Ukraine. So there's a small news item. So when people inquired why a dead body of somebody belonging to Hyderabad had come back from Ukraine, then people came to know that Russia has been recruiting youngsters from here to aid or help their war effort in Ukraine. And people are dying there. Now, you can imagine, people are prepared to go to Gaza. People are prepared to go to Ukraine. And people are lining up for manual jobs, non-technical jobs, for 35,000 jobs, 1 crore 25 lakhs applicants. This is the grave unemployment situation. And this is youth unemployment. let me underline that. Youth unemployment in India, Aniruddha, is roughly about 24%. 24 youngsters out of every 100 are unemployed today. And we are in the company of countries like Iran, Syria, Yemen, Lebanon, countries like that. Our neighbor, which is a small neighbor, Bangladesh, their youth unemployment rate is just 12%, as against 24% in India. And if you want to take this a little forward, the pressure on Manrega, which is a minimum wage thing, has increased manifold in the last 1 year or 2 years. So much so, Aniruddha, that last financial year's allocation for Manrega, for full 1 year allocation, was exhausted in 6 months' time. That is the kind of pressure. This is one. And the government of India has told the parliament that this statement was made in August 2023. But since then, the latest figures, people are estimating it could be more. But at that time, the government's own figures, the debt of government of India was 155.6 crores. Of course, people have updated after that, but I'm giving you the government figure. 155 lakh crores government debt, which in the last 10 years has increased by about 100 lakh crore. So from 47 to 2014, that debt was about 50 lakh crores. And since then, it has increased to 155.6 lakh crores. This is the debt. And this is more than roughly about 60% of India's GDP. Okay. This is the debt situation. And then when this is the scenario about the debt, the government of India has adopted a policy whereby scheduled banks and nationalized banks, and if you include in Maharashtra, you have a lot of cooperative banks and other things. I'm not including them. I'll include them also in a while. If you just look at the scheduled banks and nationalized banks, the corporate debt write-off is somewhere around 25 lakh crores. And if you bring in all the other banks also, it is amounting to about 40 lakh crores. This is the corporate debt. Now, on the other hand, not only they're writing off or writing down the debt. When you ask the government, they say, no, it's just a book adjustment. We are not really letting them off. We are also collecting. Then when inquiries were made, how much was actually collected? When they wrote off 40 lakh, when they written down 40 lakh crores, their collection out of that was only 2 lakh crores. So net is somewhere around 38, 36, 37, 38 lakh crores. Now, this is not only the situation, but in addition, let us look at what is happening to a lot of HNIs. They are not investing in India. The domestic investment in India has been falling. If you compare broadly before 14 and now, I'm not talking about even earlier, what used to be about 31% earlier is now stands at around 19% to 20%. So that was the drastic for domestic investment, notwithstanding what the captains of industry and big business people say in the conclaves. India is doing great. India is a great story, growth story. Notwithstanding all that, but to me, the proof of pudding is if the India INC is confident about the future or the present of India domestically, the signal would be their investment, not their talk. So this is another one. Not only that, the number of people who are leaving India, not for sightseeing, not for tourism, not for studying, not for visiting, but leaving India for good, relinquishing the citizenship and migrating. The numbers have been steadily rising. 2014, 2014, the entire year, we lost about 130,000, and most of them were HNIs, relinquishing of citizenship. 15, 131,000. 16, 141,000. 17, 133,000. 22, the latest information that we have, after that the figures did not come, is 225,000. Interestingly, Aniruddha, your neighboring state, Gujarat, contributes about 22,300 in this. A lot of people from Gujarat are also leaving. Don't smile. Okay. Now, you're all in the United States. And you've gone long ago and you've gone legally. But are you aware that a lot of Indians now, it's not just the South Americans and Africans and some Middle East or North Africans, not just that. A lot of Indians are also trying to enter the United States illegally. Are you aware in America? Yeah. And again, a lot of people from Gujarat. And the government's own admission to a question in the Rajya Sabha was that according to, it's not Government of India's estimates, it is the US immigration's estimates was that in 23, 96,917 Indians tried to cross into the United States illegally. They held them. And those who escaped and went around, those who were undetected, can be anybody's guess. This is another one. And then the rural distress is something which is, as I told you about the pressure on Manrega. The rural incomes are stagnant. Inequality has risen so much. I don't know if you've heard the latest report of the World Inequality Report. Inequality Lab is run by a very renowned and reputed economist called Thomas Piketty in Paris. They look at inequality throughout the world, in all the countries, historical data, whenever data was available. Some of the countries have data for a long time, 200 years, 250 years even. But they have looked at India's data, and their conclusion is that inequality in India now is higher even compared to inequality during the British Raj. 1% of India's population commands 22% of its income. And 1% of India's population commands 40% of its wealth, assets. This is the kind of inequality we have. This is the historical high. And the inequality has sharpened, grown rapidly during the New India, last 10 years. This is another one which we need to keep in mind. I do not want to go on and on with the economy situation. This is one. Let me. We can have some more discussion on this. When there are Q&As. Of course, there might be a lot of questions on this. let me turn my attention to the political, the social structure, and the federal structure. Now, when this new India was inaugurated in 2014, that time it was cooperative federalism. And Team India consisting of the Prime Minister of India and all the chief ministers. And Team India meant that Prime Minister, the present Prime Minister, and all the Prime Ministers who have gone by before. That kind of a inclusive talk. But that talk you don't hear anymore in New India. It's all over. Team India is the Prime Minister and 140 crore people of India. They're all a family now. Then, in this, the plurality of India, the biggest political party, BJP claims that it is the biggest political party not only of India, it is the biggest political party of the world. This biggest political party does not have a place for one single member from the biggest minority in India, that is the Muslim minority, in its Council of Ministers, in its cabinet, in its Lok Sabha parliamentary party, in its Rajya Sabha parliamentary party. Not a single person. And not a single member belonging to that community in the largest state of India from their party, the UP BJP legislature party, not a single member. Not a single member in the Gujarat legislature party. Not a single member when they held power in Karnataka. Not only that, there was no single member in their parliamentary party, their Rajya Sabha, in their Lok Sabha, in the UP Assembly, in Gujarat Assembly, not a single person belonging to the largest minority of India was even given a ticket. Now, I don't have to remind you of the kind of language one ruling party MP used against the MP belonging to that minority community. I don't have to. And I do not also have to remind you of the calls for economic boycott, calls for jihad, if you have to live in this country, you have to, chant certain slogans, chant certain things. And then, saints, so-called, holy men having a dharma sansa, then calling for, ethnic cleansing and keeping arms at home and, that kind of a thing. And, regular lynchings of people who sell bangles, who have small shops and things like that. That's the regular thing that is going on. This is the kind of plurality that we should see today in India, in New India. And look at the federal structure. Now, ours is a federal structure. And let me tell you again the economic and political implications of what is happening today. Some of the states which are not looked upon favorably by the ruling party at the center, the bills passed by their legislatures, the governors don't sign. Lots of bills are pending. And some of them are even sent to the President of India, and President of India also sits on those bills. So politically, the legislature, the duly elected, popularly elected legislatures of the states are stifled. Their democratic rights are stifled. This is one. The second thing is there are states from which the union government collects 1 rupee and gives back only about 30 paisa or 32 paisa or 20 paisa, 28 paisa. And there are states from where the government of India collects 1 rupee and gives 4 rupees, 5 rupees, 6 rupees per rupee. Those who they favor tend to get a better deal. Those who are not favored. And this whole slogan you must have heard about double engine sarkar during the election campaign. If you elect our own government, it will be double engine sarkar and you get a lot of funding. And if you go against that, if you elect another party, then the funds are squeezed. Now, the government of India says that, look, we can't do anything because all this is laid down in the Finance Commission reports. And we have to necessarily follow what the Finance Commission says. And the devolutions are according to the Finance Commission reports. That is what the government of India's defense is. But that is what they say technically. But then they have found a way to squeeze funds and favor some and not favor some. I'll tell you how. The divisible pool is only of the taxes. But when the government of India collects cesses and surcharges, they do not form part of the divisible pool. And the government of India had collected almost about 40 lakh crores outside the divisible pool. And it is those, by deploying those, you can either punish a state government or favor a state government, disfavor a state government or favor a state government. This is another route that they have, invented. They're using this route. This is another one. And, sometime back there was, how much time did it take already?
Please go ahead. Please go ahead. I think it's going well. I mean, you can still go ahead.
I'll conclude this by making another 2 points. This is insofar as the federalism is concerned. I talked about the pluralism. Then, of course, the politically speaking, the way state governments have been destabilized. Defections organized. Governments were wrecked time and again. And we've come to know where this kind of a cash has come from in the electoral bonds and a raid and a bond purchase. A bond purchase and award of a contract. This is another method that we have seen. Not only for awarding the contracts and extorting money, but even the spectrum which went in favor of Airtel. But when people looked at and the kind of gigantic efforts that the government had made in order not to reveal the data of electoral bonds, they went on pleading with the State Bank of India. I mean, with the Supreme Court, the State Bank of India. Just a few hours, just about 48 hours before the deadline, the State Bank of India goes back to the Supreme Court and says that it's a huge exercise. We won't be able to do it, and they wanted time till June 30th, and after the elections. These are the attempts that are being made. So the character of New India is such today that the opposing voices are being silenced. Political parties are broken. They are being silenced. opposition governments run by opposition parties in various states, most of them have to face every day some kind of a threat or the other. And the economy, unprecedented level of price rise, youth unemployment, falling labor participation ratio, increasing debt, falling domestic savings as well as investment. And a lot of increasing number of people relinquishing the Indian citizenship and going away. And most of them happen to be high net worth individuals. In addition to that, a lot of illegal migration to different countries, that is also in evidence. And during the discussion, probably there will be an occasion to talk about government claims of fastest growing economy, fifth largest economy, and of course, multidimensional poverty, which has the government claims has come down. I think these things we need to talk about, and I do not want to take the entire everything in my initial submission, but these are the important things that I think we should to talk about them. And then the pulling up of 30 crore people out of poverty, below poverty line. These also need. These are the claims that the government is making. So we need to examine them also. If you examine them, then of course we will know what exactly is the code of this new India. Now, this code, Aniruddha, is now reached a point where if this drift is not stopped, the drift in the economy, the drift in the constitutional values, democracy, as Dr. Pitroda had pointed out, the threats to democracy, plurality, the kind of dog whistles that you hear now from, small groups and, dharma sansas and things like that. There will be a day, if this is not stopped, that you hear them as no more as dog whistles, but as open calls from the ramparts of Red Fort. That is the kind of danger that we are staring at. And don't think that any state will be safe. And what is happening in Manipur will not happen elsewhere. This is something that we need to keep in mind. And this numbness, this indifference, it's happening for the last 1 year almost in Manipur. And we've become indifferent to it now. I'm not talking about people people like you in the US, but even in India, it is not a point of discussion anymore. It's become normal. Now, another important feature of this new India is that it has somehow managed to normalize the abnormal and abnormalize the normal. We can talk about in detail about these things when we get into the Q&A. Thank you very much.
So first of all, thank you, Prabhakar. I really liked how you put difficult technical discussions, inflation and all that in very simple ways that anybody like me can understand or myself can understand. So let's go with some questions we have here. And I will just go through the chat. If you have questions, please put in the chat. I'll start from the top. The first question was, what takes India now? I see lots of car on the road, restaurants are full, and people celebrating festivals. So, sab changa hai, basically. We see sab changa hai. Everything is so going well. So what these numbers, I mean, does it matter? So what is actually happening?
Okay, this is interesting. You see, your population, I mean, your means United States population, is about 330 million.
Yeah.
India's middle class is about that size. Middle class, upper middle class. Your cars and restaurants and airports and all that. But you are talking about in India, which is not 33 crores. And most of these European governments and American government and the huge investment bankers and financial institutions, FIIs, what do they look at when they look at India? They look at India as a market. And what is Indian market? Indian market is 33 crores. Now, if that is doing well, it is doing well. But you ask any of the multinational corporations, MNCs, which are into the FMCG. FMCG, for FMCGs is the rural market, which is very high. All the FMCGs say that the rural market is not picking up.
Yeah. Can I ask you what is FMCG?
Fast moving consumer goods.
Okay.
Hindustan Lever, all these. So their sales in the rural market are very tepid. In fact, rural offtake of credit is also very tepid. And as I said, the demand for Manrega has been growing. Why would anybody go and demand work which pays you minimum wage? When a good wage and a good job is available, good work is available, they won't go. And in 2019, if you remember, there was a report by the National Statistical Organization on the situation of unemployment in India, and it leaked. The government suppressed it before the elections, but however, it leaked. And that report said unemployment rate in India in 2019 was the highest in the last 40 years. And since then, it has become worse. I'll give you a simple example. Sab changa hai. If that is the case, why is India quite low on the World Hunger Index? One. Second, but the government said, look, World Hunger Index, their methodology is flawed, and it's basically anti-India propaganda, and India is not sleeping hungry, and all that kind of a thing. They say that. But if that is the case, why did the Prime Minister choose to announce that the government of India would give 5 kilos of food grains free of cost? Why did he choose if India is not hungry? The World Hunger Index is misleading. He wouldn't have done that. Not only that, there's one more thing that you must keep in mind. Recently, just a few days ago, under a week ago, the chief economic advisor, Anand Nageshwar, he said, creating unemployment, etc., not the government's job. That's not, but the political party on the other hand says that we will create 2 crore jobs per annum. That's the promise.
Yeah.
But this is another one. And it's painful to talk about this data because especially people like you who are living abroad, you would like India to do well. And if somebody says India is doing well, you feel nice about it. And if somebody like me comes along and says, look, India is not doing well, you might view me with suspicion. That what is this, doomsday, kind of a talk. People ask me, can't you say anything? Can't you see anything good in India? I'll come to that. But then it's like this. Especially because, you see, you want your peers in the US or wherever you go, UK, France, or wherever, you want all of them to talk high about India, to look up to India. So that's your dream. It's my dream too. But I want India to really do well, not just project that it is doing well when it is not doing well. No, you have G20, and all the leaders from different countries come here, and you erect, you screen off, where the cavalcade goes, you screen the streets, you put up huge screens so that people don't get to, the visitors don't get to see what's happening behind those screens, mohallas and other things they don't get to see. Is that the way you want to run the country? Is that the way you want to project India is doing very well? Now, look at this data, which is an authentic data. The anemic children aged between 6 and 59 months, anemic children in India are 67%. Anemic women aged between 15 and 49 are 57%. Stunted children under the age 5 are 33.5%. Children wasted, their limbs are wasted, weak, that is about 20%. Now, you call this Changasi? Since you talked about, the kind of projection that's happening in the world, don't think that people like World Bank and institutions like World Bank and IMF and different bankers, investment bankers, they don't know what is happening in India, but they are looking at only the 33 crore, 330 billion or 300 billion. Yeah. That is their market. But the rest of India, they're not bothered about it. It's going fast. And therefore, the inequality that I talked about, Inequality Labs report, that is a reflection of this. Not only that, if you look at the automobile sales, SUV sales are upbeat. Two-wheeler sales are tepid. What does it show? It shows acute inequality. The consumption. Consumption is not rising above 3 to 3.5. When the consumption is not rising, it indicates something, because that means that the people have no money in their pockets. Yeah. Because there is huge unemployment.
Okay. Thank you. And I think my thought was the socio-economic structure where we live, we don't connect to the people who live in slums and rural areas, and that may be one of the reasons we see. And our friends and everyone, they work in software and they work in those areas, and I don't know anybody in my relatives who really works as a laborer per se, right? So then we'll go to the next question. So despite this kind of unemployment, we don't see any unrest on ground. Why could that be? Is it, and I had the same question, but I will just add my thought to it. Is it just the projection of power that people get mystified and get fooled by?
Aniruddha, don't say that you don't find unrest.
Okay.
Because the media is under control. They don't get onto the headlines. They don't get onto your 9 o'clock news debates. Have you come across any regular footage of what is happening in Manipur?
No, except YouTube, maybe.
Yeah. And do you come across any regular news reportage about the farmers' agitation?
No. No, we get news. I mean, most of the
No,
news
I'm
that
talking
we see,
regular
uh,
news outlets. I'm not talking about
but you know, but most of the news I get in newspapers or news outlets in India are about Anil Ambani's son's wedding. That's the most
important.
important news. Yeah. Okay. So the other,
Let us not be under the illusion that you know these things are not being expressed.
okay.
Are being expressed. Only thing is that they are not reaching the headlines because the media is complicit.
Yeah.
They're under
Uh,
pressure.
okay. The other question was, as Indians in the USA, how can we contribute except for Facebook activism? And before you answer this question, Prabhakar, just one thing for the participants. I see many hands being raised. I don't know how to handle that, but if you have questions, please put in the chat. That way we can get to all the questions. Okay. So the question was, how can we contribute except for Facebook activism? As people who are living in United States, what can we do?
I would have faced an equally intense dilemma. If I were to live in the United States, what could I do? But you see, I will not be very pessimistic about it, because these days ideas, thoughts can travel very fast. Communication travels very fast. Um, you can start speaking up. You can, help highlighting which the government wants to hide. You can probably, have your own sources, because uh, it's not very difficult to get footage from India. You can have your network contacts. Concentrate on, a few states that you have network and friends. Get things from there, and speak to people who are uh, who are scrutinizing Indian economy, who are scrutinizing the government claims. Talk to them and spread the word. And when we speak in India to fellow Indians, it has some impact probably. But people like you from the USA speak, it has much more impact. This is one. The second thing is, see if this impression that uh, the whole of NRIs are with the government, with the regime. They've all turned into clapper boys. They've all, are in the fan club. So see that impression has a huge impact on the Indian population. Because people here look up to you as somebody, who are more successful, more knowledgeable. Um, your impression, your opinion matters here. Therefore, if you start asking questions, if you start scrutinizing the government's claims, interrogating the government's claims, that has a lot of impact.
No, thank you very much. And I would like to say that this talk itself is that effort, like engaging with well-known economists and people who don't have any political interest right now. But there is one comment. I don't know whether this is a question or comment, but I'll just read what it has been said. This could be an extremely pessimistic, and I think this was when you were talking. This could be an extremely pessimistic or inappropriate way of thinking, but I am afraid, I have started feeling that the whole system is not a mistake, but it is intentional to create a situation where dictatorship flourishes. I think that's their opinion. If any thoughts on this one?
Yeah. You see, I'll tell you about this pessimistic thing. I want to address that. As I said some time ago, I said, can't you see anything good that's happening in India?
Yeah.
People ask me that. I tell them that, look, I'm a diagnostician. And if you go to a doctor and he would first diagnose you, and he would tell you, look, you have a problem with your heart.
Yeah.
Then if I come out of the doctor's consultation room shouting, look at this fellow, he's such a pessimistic. Can't he see that my ears are very good, my eyes are very good, my nose is very good, my hands are very good, I'm able to talk, my voice is nice. He doesn't see anything of that. He just talks about only, uh, he just only talks about, my heart. That's very, very important. It is, I mean, and there are people who can tell the government, you're doing this very nicely, you're doing that very nice, you're doing this very nice. That is not our job. We have to go into the heart of the matter and say, look, this needs to be fixed. When 24% of your young population, 24% is the headline. But let me tell you, youngsters between the age of 20 and 25, the unemployment rate among them is 40%.
Wow.
And we have a huge demographic dividend. 53% of our country's population is considered categorized as young. Now, if you don't give them work, if you don't give them income, if you don't engage them productively, if you don't give them gainful employment, is the economy in crisis? Is it pessimistic? Now, if 1 year allocation for Manrega is exhausted in 6 months, is it pessimistic? It's a fact.
Yes, sir.
It is not an allegation. It is a very hard data. And if 2.25 lakh Indians are relinquishing their citizenship and going, most of them HNIs, and domestic savings falling, investment falling, is that being pessimistic? Now, look, you see, thing is this. Investment bankers, they look at, what is the Indian economy doing? How much is the capex? How much is that expenditure? This expenditure? These are the things that they talk about. Have you heard any of these pink papers and any of these business, houses, investment bankers talking about what is the rural consumption? What is the agriculture output?
Yeah.
Where is the growth coming from? Now, if you say that, our last quarter, our growth was 8.4%. That is what the government projects. Well, it needs a bit of a treatment. Maybe there might be a question I can treat then, or if you want me to treat it now, talk about it now, I can talk about it now.
Yeah, go ahead.
You see, it's like this, Aniruddha. National income accounting is generally not perfect. Still, we do take, as some indication. I tell you why it is not perfect and why it has so many flaws. Let's broadly talk about what the government claims. The government claims that we have overtaken the United Kingdom and become the 5th largest economy. Okay. And at the same time, the government also says, the Prime Minister says, that we will be a developed country by 2047. That is our target. Now, my question is this. If you have overtaken a developed country, if you agree that the United Kingdom is a developed country, if you have overtaken a developed country, what are you?
A developed country.
then why are you saying that you will be a developed country in 2047?
Yeah.
No. And developed country is 47 is that is one. Fifth largest economy, one. But where are you in terms of per capita income? You say in total GDP volume, you're fifth largest, but it doesn't mean anything to the common person. To some extent, what really signifies anything for a common person is the per capita income. Even that is flawed. I'll come to that also. But in terms of per capita income, where is India? 140. Do you know? Fifth largest economy is, in terms of per capita income, is at 140. Now, how do you, I mean, if you want to go on deluding yourself that we are doing very well with this kind of unemployment, with this kind of per capita income, how are you going to, how are you saying that you're doing very well? Now, the discrepancy between the GDP figures, 8.4%, and the consumption figures. Consumption, normally the standard deviation between GDP and consumption figures, growth of GDP and consumption growth figures, the deviation is acceptable if it is 0.5% to 1%. So maximum 1% or 1.5% if you want to be a bit more liberal. Now, the consumption growth in India steadily has been between 3 and 3.5%. Now, even if you take it at 3.5% and add the highest amount of consumption discrepancy, that is about 1.5%. That comes to
5%.
Now, government claims that the GDP has grown by 8.4%.
So why would you produce if you are consuming only 5%?
So, which means, that the figures are not reliable. There's one more thing which is happening in India, which is very, very sad to remark. That is this: that the statistical architecture in India today stands discredited. People say it's unreliable. The government doesn't release figures anymore.
Okay.
Even what they release, like 8.4, 8.5, and things like that, they're unreliable because, you see, we have stopped collecting data from the informal sector, from the unorganized sector for a long time now, after this government came. Now, what we do in the absence of the data from the unorganized sector, we proxy the organized sector onto it. And then, you paper over the rural distress and demonetization and COVID and all the impact that it had on these things had on the unorganized sector, rural sector. You ignore that. You proxy this growth onto that and say that we are growing, but it is not reliable. And one more thing that the government has been doing very successfully, and it doesn't listen to any questioning on this, is this: that in old India, 1 kilometer of a 4-lane road is 1 kilometer of a 4-lane road. In new India, 1 kilometer of a 4-lane road is 4 kilometers. Now you can see.
Yeah.
Rapidly developing.
Yeah. Okay. The next one is, it's just a comment, but it says a lot. The thinking Indian youth, so people who can really think in India as well as US, should listen to this narrative by Prabhakar on economy. The symptoms of economic problems and facts are put so simply and effectively before us. So really, I mean, this is understandable, because talking to an economist, if you have insomnia, that is the best medicine you can have probably, but that was not the case. We were kept alive. The other question here is, and I'm going one by one, so please bear with us. All of these facts are so relevant. A, any even slightly rational person should not be voting for BJP. However, there are still around 35 to 40% of voters who choose BJP. In some states, this number goes up to almost 50%. Why do these people just not care? What are the non-factual, emotional, or other reasons why people continue to vote for BJP? And how does INC or India bloc counter this? So this is more like, okay, the electoral success BJP or portrayed electoral success BJP had.
Aniruddha, you see, our parliamentary democracy is designed in such a way that you don't have to have a majority of vote in order to get majority of the seats. You know, in 2014, the BJP's vote share with all its allies put together. For instance, if it contests in alliance with say Shiromani Akali Dal.
Yeah.
In many constituencies, the Shiromani Akali Dal vote component for a constituency which is contested by the BJP will be higher. But then, because the BJP candidate polls that entire vote, it comes into the account of the BJP. So if you look at that way, the BJP has polled about 27% in 2014. So with 27% of vote, it has captured the majority of seats.
Yeah.
Okay. Now 19, that went up to 33%. Till almost about 67% is outside. So please don't be under the impression that, you know, BJP is all powerful. It has got the majority. If somebody said 50% or something, it's just not.
Okay.
And if you look at it, I mean, I have this is subject to be, you know, questioned and debated. But I'll just put forward one proposition here. You know, UPA 2 had faced very heavy headwinds in terms of policy paralysis, corruption allegations, 2G, CWG, and all those kind of things, India against corruption. And most of the people, middle class, articulate, professionals, got disgusted with that and voted that government out and voted this government in. So if you look at the BJP's vote share until then, under Atal Bihari Vajpayee, Advani, the maximum they could reach was about 21%. So, riding on the back of this India against corruption movement, BJP vote share, because urban, middle class, articulate, professionals, you know, people who are disgusted with the corruption, you know, all those things. And of course, you know, even if there are 10 people who are impacted by this, elections, what happens is there's something called a bandwagon effect. If 10 people, you know, are going, you know, another 10 people might follow them. If you're going, you know, I'm sure there were 10, 15 people follow you. That way, there's a bandwagon effect. All that put together has brought their maximum was now, maximum that they could come to is about, you know, 30 or 35%. And, you know, you have to take out the allies contribution and all that. Just the BJP's thing.
Anirudh.
Yes, sir.
Anirudh, I would like 5 minutes to add to what he's saying, whenever convenient.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, sir. After this question, sir, you can talk. Yeah. Yes. Prabhakar, please finish your thoughts there.
This is one. And the next thing is from here is that, you know, the major, you know, the plank, the moral high ground of the BJP is lost after the electoral bond.
Yeah.
I tell you, Anirudh, people may not be able to believe, but I could see a lot of people are now questioning the moral high ground of BJP. Electoral bond is now being seen as not only the biggest scam in India, but as the biggest scam in the entire world. In fact, I would call this as Modi Gate. It is no less than that. Coupled with, because of this losing of moral high ground, a large section of this which accrued to BJP post 2014, 2013-14 timeline, they are going to go away from BJP. So BJP is actually not doing very well politically to me.
Okay. Sam, sir, if you want to add, and especially when they were talking about INC or India Alliance. So Sam, please.
Thank you. I want to add to Dr. Prabhakar's presentation. To me, BJP has basically captured all of the institutions. So institutions are no longer autonomous, whether it is Election Commission, ED, CB, police, security, state governments, you name it, including to some extent judiciary. So everybody draws government line. And if you don't, you get punished, you get transferred, your career gets ruined. True civil society has been completely killed in the name of foreign exchange violation, this rule, that rule. I have a lot of close friends who work as NGOs for 30, 40 years, and they cannot function at all. 3, media is completely bought out and controlled. So what you and I see on an average television is government line, and no one gets fair share of the media.
Yeah.
Every event is choreographed. I mean, look at the way the Ram temple was choreographed. That it is all about one man. I saw the other day conversation between Bill Gates and Prime Minister Modi. I thought it was pathetic. That Prime Minister of the country keeps telling that I did this and I did that in digital space. And people believe it. I had a conversation a few weeks ago with 20 people, and they thought that digital payment was invented by Modi. I mean, they literally thought it. And these were educated people. And I had to remind them that this was invented during Manmohan Singh's time. There was a committee set up on digital payment. Nandan Nilekani and I chaired that committee. And we are the one at that point in time, a group. And nothing gets done with one person. But PM takes credit for everything.
Mm-hmm.
People let him do it.
Yeah.
In last 10 years, PM has not had one press conference. How can you say it is democracy when PM is not willing to talk to public and press? Everything that I see is choreographed. Messages are crafted. Attacks are systematically organized, whether it's on Rahul or INC or somebody else. Systematic attack with all the institutions combined, whether it's Kejriwal or Shahrukh Khan's son. It just happens over and over again. So public see this as enemies. And these are not enemies, these are good people. So good people have turned out to be seen as bad, and bad people are really controlling the government. At the end of the day, these are the people who killed my Gandhi. I have no more conversation. I'm not willing to listen to anything else. And they are being celebrated today. There is something fundamentally wrong in the country. People are coward. They don't speak up. Everybody wants to join the bandwagon. You show them a lollipop, and they are behind you. Where is the Gandhian India, where you stand up for the right cause? And that's what Dr. Prabhakars of the world are doing.
Yeah.
And we need to join them. We need to support them. Situation is much more serious than people in America realize. I think people in the US are naive in many ways. They have no idea of what the realities are. They're all my friends. I respect all of them. I love all of them. But they have no idea.
Yeah.
You know, things are pretty serious. India is being hijacked. And if 2024 election, the way it looks now, is won by BJP, it will be very difficult to recover from it. Okay. It is really SOS. But people don't get it. You know.
Yeah.
I am very concerned about India. And
Yeah.
I hope that many of us speak up, convince our families and friends. And it's very difficult to convince your own family.
True.
Against Ram Mandir and temple and all this stuff. You know, there is a wall created and you cannot communicate with them. Yeah. And they have done it in a very nice way. I got to give them credit for it.
Yeah.
But we have very little time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sam. Well said. I'll just go to the next question. There was one question, Prabhakarji. What do you think about corporate tax rates? That's an interesting question. Any thoughts on that?
Corporate tax rates or rates?
Corporate tax rates, how
Rates. Now, after the electoral bond data has come out, now we know what the raid was about and why raid was conducted and why.
No, it's not a raid, sir. RATES. Rates.
Yeah, raid.
Yeah.
The two things have happened. The government really wanted the corporate sector to manufacture, to increase up their activity. So they have resorted to two things. One is to reduce the corporate taxes. They've reduced it. Now I'll tell you and reduction is quite substantial, Aniruddha. Reduction is so substantial. There are two categories in that. One category is the old corporates, corporates that are established, and the other one is the new manufacturing units. For the old rate from 30 to 22% reduction, and for the new ones, 25 to 15% reduction. If you start a new one, under the old regime, it used to be 25% corporate tax. That is reduced to 15%. Under the old rate, the old corporates used to pay 30. That has come down to 22%. The government has been losing substantial amount of money because of this, which means that the corporates are benefiting. That is one. The second thing I've explained about the haircut the banks have taken. Right? Huge haircuts the banks have taken. Write-downs were nearly all put together is almost coming to about 40 lakh crores. If it is the scheduled banks and the big banks, of course, it's only about 25 lakh. It's not only, it's about 25 to 27 lakh crores. These two things have been done by the government. And there is another thing called the production linked incentives. That's also included, with the hope that the corporate sector would respond and up their production, up their investments. But in spite of all this, in spite of the government and the Prime Minister repeatedly appealing to the corporate sector, the investments in the corporate sector is not going up. Another measure that the government of India had done, and what they call, very interestingly, is crowding in the private investment by putting in a lot of public investment. So it's called the crowding in strategy. Even then, the domestic investment has not risen.
Yeah.
So rates are reduced with no effect. Write-downs are done with no effect. Production-linked incentives were given with no effect.
So now in this case,
Make in India has not taken off. Now you had since we have talked about, I mentioned Make in India. Anirudh, the problem with this government has been, one, of course, as Dr. Pitroda had said, that things done by other people earlier are projected as they. For instance, just by changing the name, Nirmal Bharat has become Swachh Bharat and all that kind of thing. You have very jazzy slogans: Make in India, Startup India, Khelo India, Stand Up India, Digital India, you Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao kind of a thing. But for instance, I'll give you one example of Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao. 80% of the funds allocated to Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao, 80%, 79.8% or something like that, but 80%. That money was spent on publicizing. You know who?
yeah.
And you have in every petrol station there's a hoarding, on the highway there is a hoarding, in the market there is a hoarding, in the social media there are advertisements, in the cinema halls there are advertisements, everything. And 80% of the money was spent on this. And as I told you, malnourished children, school education, funds to primary education, they're all suffering.
Yeah. Okay. And this is an interesting question here. What are the seeds in everyone that existed earlier, but so easily grew from 2014 into this new India, which is the real India, who we have been now, or who we wanted to become between 1947 to 2014? Very nicely put.
Actually, this is something which needs to exercise everybody who is in this room, who is just now talking, and many others. You see, this particular, which Dr. Pitroda also mentioned a bit, this particular way of thinking, that whose India is this? There's one school of thought which says that India belongs to everybody. Another school of thought believes and believed that India belongs to Hindus. Okay. But Aniruddha, the second category, which is now ruling, that India belongs to Hindus, is not new. It's always been there. For a long time, it's there. And even 1818, after the Third Maratha War, since then, in the public domain, many people said it is Hindu. This is a Hindu country. And there were other people who said, no, everybody, it's as Jawaharlal Nehru said, it's a palimpsest. One layer after the other, one layer after the other. So many people came here, settled here, lived here, made this their homeland, that kind of palimpsest. And the most fertile ground for this kind of a politics to really raise its head was soon after partition, soon after independence. When thousands of dead bodies were coming from that side of the border to this side, and a lot of communal holocaust, violence, people of bloodshed, hundreds and thousands of bodies going from this side to the other side of the border. That was the time when communal passions were very high. It was a conflagration. Millions of people were homeless. They were refugees in and around Delhi, in and around Calcutta, so many places. That was the most fertile ground. And the leaders who championed this second stream of thought that India belongs to Hindus were very tall leaders like Shava Prasad Mukherjee, Balraj Badhok, Karpatri Maharaj, Golwalkar. All those people were around. You're familiar with most of these names. But at that time, that did not gain ground. Compared to them, the leaders that we have today are very small. But the leaders who championed that India belonged to everybody were tall, they had popularity, and they championed this and they stopped this kind of a menace to grow. Okay. One more thing I must add here. Our constitution was made when the debates took place for about 3 years. I think it was December 46 to November 49, roughly about 3 years. And that was the testing time for India. During this period, partition took place and bloodshed took place, communal conflagration, violence, bloodshed, direct action, Jinnah, all that kind of a thing was taking place on both sides of India, both western flank or as well as the eastern flank. And most of the people who were in the Constituent Assembly, they were also holding positions in the government. They were day to day, they were dealing with these problems. They were visiting the refugee camps, looking after the arrangements there and coming back, going to their offices, and from there coming to the Constituent Assembly. They were debating what should be the character of Indian state. In the midst of that kind of a turmoil, the idea that India should be a plural country, India should be a secular country, India should be a democratic country, India should be a liberal country, prevailed. Imagine the broadness of these people. In the midst of that kind of a crisis, for 3 years they deliberated and gave us this constitution, which had these core values. But what happened? Why did we arrive at this place? Slowly and slowly, with very few honorable exceptions, almost every political party started doing business with these people, with these forces. In the government, outside the government, outside support, joining this government, something or the or in some way or the other endorsing their agenda. I'll tell you one example. Even BJP used to say that they were secular party. Do you remember?
Yeah. Gandhiwadi Samajwad, the slogan.
Yeah. Gandhian socialism and secularism. We are all secular, but genuinely secular. Not pseudo-secular like Congress and communists. That used to be the thing. But Aniruddha, today, most of the political parties and most of the political leaders, what are they saying? We are also Hindu, but not like them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Used to be, we are also secular, but not like Congress and communists. Today, every party is saying we are also Hindu, but not like BJP. Now, look at the shift that has taken place. Now, here is the main thing. That when the from 1818 to 1820s, Phule, the clashes between Phule and Tilak and, Gokhale, Gandhiji, a lot of turmoil took place. Savarkar was alive and all this. Still, these secular values, liberal values, plural values prevailed, even in the Constituent Assembly and after that. The reason was there was a dedicated leadership and cadre who championed these values. But those political parties have merely reduced themselves to election fighting machines. Between one election, the other election, these parties do nothing. They've forgotten political education. They don't talk about anything. They think that you can just win the election. When that was happening, there was a dedicated groups and organizations which went on working relentlessly without expecting quick results, without expecting recognition, limelight, or rewards. Hard work away from the limelight. That kind of a work in the absence of, upholding constitutional values has landed us here. Now, that brings me to say this, Anuruddha. When communal ideas have an army to defend them and to protect them and to promote them, when that is there, when secular and liberal values have no army,
Yeah.
this is what happens. People like us will sleep well if secular, liberal, democratic values have a dedicated army to defend and to work for them.
Mhm. Yeah.
That is why we landed here. We lack that.
Okay. Pretty good analysis. Thank you, Prabhakar. The next one was really, where do you think, we talked about debt, the government debt and all that, right? So where do you think has gone the money raised through debt? And I think to that question, I will also add that first time in India's history, government mandated Reserve Bank to give the money that they have, the cash that they ask them to transfer it to the government. And they usually reserve banks do transfer, but they asked, hey, you are sitting on a lot of money, give it to us. So where did this money really go?
Aniruddha, it's a mystery to me also. There is debt, huge amount of debt. You said exactly. I would say that the government has raided the Reserve Bank. Second. Third, they also have proceeds from the selling of public
Assets.
makings.
Mhm.
When they have all this and they're absolutely doing nothing, where is it all going? I think like what happened with electoral bonds, this will also have to come out. There's
Okay.
something is happening. I'm telling you, lot of things are happening which are very, very detrimental to India. And not just the idea of India, even the physical structure of India. That's alarming. This remains a mystery even to me. As you said, Reserve Bank reserves,
Yeah.
debt, and the sale of public sector.
Yeah. So we are about at the top of the hour. I would still like to dedicate like 10-15 minutes. And I'll just go, like, some people have asked multiple questions, so I will probably skip the question and try to get other people's question answered. So I would say we will give another 10 past the hour. So that will be 9:40 would be the time where we can cut off. Or uh, the uh, the one question I have here, this was a most succinct summarization of the new India with all the data possible. We are being told that this government will return after the general election. What does this mean? The economic performance and anti-incumbency are not factors anymore? That's the question. Whether why those are not factors, or some other voting concerns trump people's economic pain. Like, are there any other concerns people have that they say, oh, I don't care about this, I only care about this, and that's why this government needs to come back?
So far, that is the story in Bhutan. Even after the huge suffering people had undergone after demonetization
Mm.
and COVID deaths, and massive dislocation in lives, and hundreds and thousands of migrant labor walking from one end of the country to the other end. In spite of that, the ruling party was not punished. Two things can account for this. One, of course, as I said, the Indian democratic setup is such, it's structured such a way that with minority number of votes, you can, get majority of seats. That's one. That's a flaw that we have. I mean, that can be addressed. That should be addressed eventually. That's a different thing. But the other thing is the disunity among the opposition people who do not endorse these values. There's a lot of disunity. These two. The other thing is that uh, the uh, the appeal to majoritarian instincts. I'll tell you what. I'll give you my own experience. I did. I also, for my profession, I also do opinion polling.
Mhm.
I did a huge opinion poll for 2012 Gujarat election. That time, I toured the entire state. I spoke to a lot of people, and my team did the quantitative work, and I was doing the qualitative collection of, insights and data. When I was talking to people, and I could see, except the arterial main roads, most of the roads in the state in Gujarat, they were not very good roads. They were actually bad roads. And I could see a lot of young people without work hanging around here and there. And agriculture was not doing well. All those things I could see with my naked eye.
Mhm.
But when I spoke to people, they would say that vibrant Gujarat is doing very well. This government will return and all that kind of a thing. And then, but when I pointedly asked them, I see a lot of young people unemployed. They say, "Oh, to hai." Then I see roads are very bad. Wo bhi hai. Then I say, there's a lot of garibi. Ah, wo bhi hai. Then where is vibrant Gujarat? And why do you think that the government would return in 2012?
Mhm.
Then that is the scratching of the surface. When I do that, the actual reason they said then वो ये सब है, लेकिन इन्होंने उन लोगों का सबक सिखा दिया.
Ah.
So that held. And in the face of a core group en bloc voting for that, and the majority which is outside that thrall dividing, then this gains significance. So
Yeah.
that is what happened. But my feeling is that that lesson was not learned by many people.
Yeah.
Which means what? The economic distress, unemployment, poverty, increase of inequality, these things need to be foregrounded in the mind of the people, not the othering that is happening.
Yeah.
So what is foregrounded is more important. The ruling party will try to foreground the division. People who don't subscribe to that kind of a divisive kind of a politics will have to foreground unemployment, price rise, rural distress, debt, and all the ills, inequalities. These things have to be foregrounded. So
Okay.
it is a question of who succeeds in foregrounding their agenda.
Yeah, got it. So there is one question here. Can you explain GDP growth on the between the last 10 years uh, versus like 2004 to 2014? I think they meant probably 2014 to 2024 and 2004 to 2014, like UPA 1, UPA 2, Modi 1, Modi 2. If you compare the
No, but
GDP,
you see, as I said in the initial opening remarks,
yeah,
I don't want this to be a UPA versus NDA kind of discussion.
yeah,
However, however, I mean, I don't want to see. As I said, the inflated figures that you see today are 8.4%, 8.2%. This quarter 8.4%, previous quarter it was 8.2%, before that it was 8.1%. And then all these come after you've adjusted the base year one. Another thing is, you see, remember, in 2016 we had demonetization,
yeah,
and which had given a major shock to the economy. And immediately after that, COVID struck. And during COVID in 22, one quarter, we had gone down to minus 23%. So whatever from a low base, whatever little gain that you have, it looks very high,
yeah,
although it is not very high. As I said, if you compare the consumption and the growth projections, there's a huge discrepancy. I'll give you one norm, just to make it non-technical. I'll give you an example. Aniruddha, suppose my income is 100 rupees,
mhm,
and my income grows in 1 year from 100 rupees to 200 rupees. What is my growth?
100%.
See, you earn a lakh of rupees and you increase your income to 1,20,000 rupees. What is your growth?
Not good at math, but maybe 2% or whatever that is.
So, see, you are earning 1,20,000, but your growth is 2%. I'm earning 200 rupees. My growth is 100%.
Yeah,
This is how it works.
yeah, yeah,
Therefore, now if you look at the 2004 to 2014 average undisputed, I'm telling you the conservative figure is about 7.5, 7.8% growth. Here, if you take out the propaganda and inflating of figures like what I said, it is at any rate it is not crossing 5.2, 5.3.
okay,
That is
okay,
the kind of situation that we have. But the completely unreliable, undependable government statistical architecture gives you a lot of figures. Don't
yeah,
go.
okay. So we are close to I mean, we have actually extended, but it was a very engaging conversation. Sam, sir, I would like you to thank Prabhakar ji and also conclude this if you don't mind.
I
Is
think
She has not spoken at all.
yeah, yeah. Sam probably left. Okay. But I think, hey, first of all, Prabhakar ji, thank you so much. It has been, we had so many questions that are yet not answered. And I think if we continue, this could go on for 1 more hour. But it was very engaging. And the thing that I liked the most is that how easily you explain this. And I think this is just the beginning. And we are going to have more such conversations, and definitely, Prabhakarji, we will have more such conversations with you. So thank you so much. And I think the message is stay informed, seek diverse sources, and keep digging for the truth. And I would just say Jai Jagat and conclude this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's giving me an opportunity.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.